guys, my name is Grim, and this one has been a long time coming, but today I'm going to tell you what my favorite 13 add-ons are. And I'm going to start with the 9 that I think are core to my gameplay and that I use all the time and wouldn't switch around. And then I'm going to share with you 4 that I kind of like, I go back and forth on. They're nice and they're ones to be aware of, but they go either way. So the first one is Action Duration Reminder. I love Action Duration Reminder. It's my favorite way to keep track of all my buffs and debuffs. Well, actually not debuffs. So you see when I cast abilities, my bar appears, and so I cast an ability, it puts a timer on the bar itself. Then when you swap bars, the timer just moves up above where it was on the back bar. So that I really like. It keeps track of things like poison injection, it keeps track of shade and your poof time. It kind of keeps track of cloak, but I actually don't use it to keep track of cloak. And I guess we can move that on to the next one. But yeah, highly recommend Action Duration Reminder. It's my favorite way to keep track of buffs by far. It's just a lot easier on the eyes and takes up a lot less space. And I'm really all about not taking up space. I like to have the cleanest UI possible so that I can focus more on the gameplay and, you know, the pretty graphics and whatever. I just don't like having my screen clouded with things. And that's a personal preference. So the next add-on, and this is one I get the most questions about, but the next add-on is buff timers. So I actually only use this for 1 or 2 kind of specialty things. I use it to track buffs that aren't on my bar. So if I hit cloak, you'll see in the bottom left corner a timer appears. That's not a cloak timer, that is a major resolve and major ward timer. So it's tracking shadow barrier. You can see in the shadow tree, shadow barrier, casting a shadow ability grants you 6 seconds of major resolve and major ward, and it's increased by 50% when I'm wearing 2 pieces of heavy armor, which is why I always wear 2 pieces of heavy armor. So when I cast an ability, I'm tracking shadow barrier in the bottom left corner. And shadow barrier is an unnamed buff, so what I'm actually tracking is major resolve, because the major resolve and major ward uptime are identical. You can see they're both ticking down together, and they are coming from that shadow barrier passive. So I use this to keep track of it, and I want it to be 100% uptime because I want to have major resolve and major ward at all times because it gives me a nice amount of tankiness, and when the timer runs out, I lose that tankiness. So I love this timer. I also use this to track my cloak uptime. So for example, if I'm cloaking and running, I know that at 6 seconds I'm going to run out, right? So I will make sure that I'm recasting it right as I need to, and that gives me, you know, the most cloak for the time, allows me to sneak past guards and other players while using up as little magic as possible. I don't like overcasting things, and so I'll use that for cloak. The big UI overhaul that I use is LUI, and actually it's kind of funny because I turn off almost every feature of LUI. I generally do it just so I can stack my bars on top of each other, and it's a really clean way to do that. It has a ridiculous amount of settings. If we look at our settings for add-ons, LUI has a ton of different, basically, functions. So you can see this is just for chat announcements, and it can tell you all sorts of things. Combat info, ultimate tracking options, global cooldown options. You can mess with the info panels, different slash commands. Unit frames are these, and so you turn off your default unit frames and turn these on, and it gives you so many options. Font size, size of your bars, the colors of the bars. So for me, I like it so that it gives me a shield as a little orange bar under this, and then gives me a plus whatever the shield size is. I don't have any shields on this character, so I can't really show you. So what I do is a division percentage, so you know, it shows me my max stam out of my it shows me my current stam out of my maximum stamina, and I like that a lot. And I also like having percentages on the side just so I can kind of see where I am. And so that's what I use LUI for. It's just a very clean way of keeping everything up. It also adds this bar when I have something in the target. That right hand bar is the enemy, and that way I can see what their execute range is. So that way I know that if I have someone under like 30% health, I can start executioning. And so I like having that there instead of looking all the way to the top. Just my goal is always to have my eyes fixated around the center of the screen. So I have my own status bars, my health, magicka, stamina, my buff tracker, and so I can see what all my buffs are, and then my enemies bar all as close as possible, so I don't have to look away very often. And that's how I like to play, while still keeping it as clean as I can. The next buff, or not buff tracker, but the next add-on I use is Dressing Room. I love Dressing Room. I'm the person that has like 20 builds per patch, and so being able to switch between them really quickly is easy. I can press circle to pull up the full Dressing Room, and switching between armor is as easy as clicking on the set. So like, say I want to run my group build, I'll just put on group build, and you can see now all of my armor has changed. So now I'm running Impreg, Blood Spawn, and I am updated to my group build. So I really like that. That's a great add-on. If you're running more than one set, I definitely recommend you use that. Very easy, and you can also use it to track the different skills you have. So if I want to trade out between, you know, a skill, I can just click that, and now I'll be running Mark instead of a Gap Closer. So pretty easy. Definitely really like that. Let's see. The next one that I use, that I always use, is Kill Counter. Now, Kill Counter only comes up when you're in Cyrodiil, which I also like, but it is an add-on that manifests in the top right-hand corner, and by clicking on it, you can actually have a pretty robust breakdown of your different kill counter stats. You can see your kills, your deaths, your KD, the people that you kill the most, the threat levels on them. It's pretty funny. Definitely a good add-on to have, and it's great for knowing how you're doing in a session, how many kills you're getting per death, just things like that. It's just a fun one to have. The next one I use is Miat CC Tracker. This is a great add-on. It just makes it really obvious when you're CC'd. Sometimes if you get feared or rune caged, it's somewhat difficult to see that you've actually been feared or rune caged or fossilized. You just want to know that you're CC'd or stunned or snared or knocked down or whatever. And in case the visual cues aren't obvious or you're lagging, this is just one more way. It pops up right in the middle of your screen and tells you, hey, you're CC'd, break free. So I like that a lot. The next one I use is another Miat's one, and that's Miat's Stealth Text. So basically, it just tells me that I'm stealth. You can see the big green word invisible right in the middle of the screen. It's simple, it's easy, and it's much better than the eye, more consistent at telling you you are invisible and you are like relatively safe. It won't tell you if you've been spotted by like a potion or anything, but it tells you that you're invisible, and that's all that really matters. Let's see. I use another buff called Should I Eat or Drink, or it's actually called Should I Drink or Eat, and that is a buff that just tracks your food. Far too often I was finding that I didn't have my food buff up, and I didn't like pressing C to check my uptime. So Should I Eat or Drink actually just puts a little icon in the bottom right hand corner here, and you can adjust where it is. Actually, sorry, bottom left hand corner. Actually, you know, mid left hand corner. Anyways, it just puts a little icon here saying you should eat, just like if you'd be out of charge on your weapon. So if you run out of charge, it puts, you know, that puts an icon right here. It's the same idea. It's just a little head that says, hey, you should eat or drink because you're out of food. The next buff, or why do I keep saying that? It's not a buff. The next add-on I use is Votan's Minimap, and this is my favorite minimap in the game. It's got a ton of options. You can check out borders, things like that. One thing that's really important is you want to make sure that in your settings that it's turned on during combat. So by default, it turns off when you're in combat. So you want to show it while mounted, you want to make sure that you're showing it while in combat, and you want to show it while you're at a siege. The idea is if you're in combat, you know where your enemies are, so you don't need a minimap showing up to block your view. I disagree with that. I love knowing what the terrain is ahead of me. If there's a place to hide, I like to check it out on the minimap. And it's also really useful to know where your allies are, and that's my favorite way of tracking my allies. That is it for the 9 that I use primarily, and so now I'm going to go into other add-ons that I think are nice, but I usually don't use them, and I'll explain why. The first one is AP Meter. Basically, it's just an AP version of the Telvar meter, but it also gives you an AP per hour count. And this is really nice, but I just don't care all that much, is the problem. I'll play, and I like to play for AP, but I don't care if I'm optimizing AP. I just want to get good fights. And so this is something that, to me, while it's cool and nice to know, it just kind of takes up UI space, and I'm not as interested in it as I would be, something else. To me, AP is like, it's nice to have, but I don't really care how much I'm getting an hour, and I don't really care how much I got in a session. I care how many kills I got and how good they were, and if I got any clips that were fun that I could use for later. But AP, don't really care. If I was going for EMP, I would definitely use an AP meter, just to make sure that I'm getting as much AP per hour as possible, and to sort of figure out what the best way to get AP in is in that moment. So it's a cool add-on, and it's simple and easy and clean, and it only shows up in Cyrodiil, just like Telvar does in IC. So I recommend checking it out at least. The next one is Circonians PvP Ranks. I actually really like this one. I'll probably use this a lot more, because it just takes this empty space here in the Alliance War page, and it puts all the ranks in there, so you can see all the ranks and where you are in them. This is really nice because it doesn't really do this anywhere else in the game. So if you're like leveling up for the first time and you don't know what rank you are or what rank is next, this is kind of cool. It also means that you can look at a symbol and just kind of be more familiar with what the name of the rank is and where it is on the food chain. Not a big deal, something that a lot of experienced players already know by heart, but it's certainly fun to have. And that way, if someone's asking you, hey, what's my next rank? Or what AP is it at and where does it end? It's kind of cool. So I actually like it a lot. And because it's very non-intrusive, I'll probably keep this one. It's pretty cool. The next one is Dark UI, and you may have already noticed that I'm using that. I don't know that I like it very much. All it does is make this a much cleaner line, and it darkens it up in the back. So the idea is that everything is cleaner, but I think it kind of goes overboard in a lot of ways, and I don't know that I care for it that much. My biggest pet peeve is the crossover areas. So like where this crosses over with this and it creates this extra shadow, like a penumbra. It just looks so messy to me. Even though the idea is that it's cleaner, and it's somewhat unnecessary. So I don't know that I really like it. It's cool though. I mean, a lot of people do, and it makes these bars look really clean, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's just one of those preference things. But that's one that you should keep an eye out for. I know a lot of people ask what this is. It's just called Dark UI. The last one is Provisions TeamFormation. Now, this one is actually really interesting. It's sort of a replacement for the minimap in terms of function. It just puts an opaque compass right in the middle of your screen. And what's nice about it is it shows you where your group is relative to you overhead. And when they die, it puts a big death icon there so that you know where they are. Other little interesting things that it does is it will show you when they're damaged. So the icons for your teammates get more and more red as they go down in health. And then it's completely white when they're at max health. Excuse me. I've been eating watermelon, and it's coming up as a burp. So anyways, this is an add-on that I think is really nice, but somewhat unnecessary for, for the function that it gives you. It's sort of redundant in terms of, comparing it to the minimap, which also shows you where your allies are, but also shows you terrain. And it can be somewhat distracting to try and make out the clear symbols. I'll actually make them less opaque than default, but then they kind of mess up your screen. They just give you more information in the middle, and since it's only half useful information, since it's technically redundant, I'm not sure I love it. I go back and forth. I'll turn it on and turn it off, and you can really go either way. But if it's something you're interested in, it is pretty cool. It certainly doesn't do anything bad. It just does more than I need it to at too high of a UI cost. I don't like it taking up space. One more thing I noticed, in case you're wondering what this is, because this will also give you your ping, your FPS, how much room you have in your inventory, your armor rating, stuff like that, the amount of soul gems that you have, and the time that you've been playing. That's all part of LUI as well, and that's actually really easy to move around and then lock into place. And so I like that. Just another little UI thing. One more thing you may notice is that the housing editor button crosses over with the compass. The minimap time stamp. but that's just because I'm in my house. 90% of the time or more, I'm not in my house, and so this is not an issue for me. But otherwise, I like everything to be very clean, crisp, and not take up too much room. So those are the add-ons that I use. I hope you found this helpful. If there are any more add-ons that you have any questions about, feel free to ask. But those are just the PvP add-ons I use, the core ones and the ones that I kind of turn it on and off and can't really decide whether or not I like them. So with that, I hope you have a great day. Please feel free to ask any questions, as always, and leave any comments. If there are any other good add-ons that you know of that you're really excited about, please feel free to share them. I'm sure everyone would benefit from that. And in case you want to help me out, I'm looking for a really good add-on that only gives you your damage stats in a text feed. I want to see how much damage I do, but I don't want to put on, like, a lot of add-ons have that as an incorporated feature. I want one that's standalone. I don't want to add anything else. I don't want to slow down my FPS or ping or anything. I just want text combat chat. So if anyone knows something that does that for me specifically, that would be great. Otherwise, you guys have a great day, and I will see you around.